Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you. Thank you again for joining me on Changing the Channel. Today I have Jennifer Thompson. She's been an entrepreneur and CEO of her own ventures for the last 29 years. On top of running WebSpark Media, a digital marketing firm employing over 30 employees, she's also the founder and partner at Savage AF, a personal development and empowerment business. In all of her ventures, she is passionate about empowering people to reach their full potential. Her journey from full throttle entrepreneur to taking her first steps on her journey and finally shifting her business to align with who she is meant to be is one to be learned from. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's dig in. Where did it all start? How did you get on this journey from entrepreneur to a little bit of a spiritual awakening into, full throttle spiritual entrepreneur?
So it all started when I was about 8 years old and I played cashier store owner with my little sister. Basically, I've known all my entire life that I was an entrepreneur, and here and there, I doubted it and I'd get a job and then I'd get fired and then I'd be an entrepreneur and I'd get a job and I'd get fired and so on and so forth until about 10 years ago, I got fired from my last job and I decided I was never going back. I was going to be a full-time entrepreneur if there was any choice in this world and I better work it out. And that is when I leaned into the grind mentality and just started living in push and grinding, working. Was not worried about alignment, fulfillment, happiness, anything. All I did is work. And then about a year and a half ago, I looked around my life and I said, I don't really have great relationship. I am single. I've never been married. I don't have children. What am I doing this for? And I've been very successful in business, but what am I doing this for? I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I'm lonely and this sucks and I don't want to do it. And so I delved into figuring myself out to see why I've chosen to live my life this way. Because even when I had a job or had another business, because I've had a lot of businesses, I've sold a couple, I was lonely and I was empty and I kept looking for more and more and more. And there was nothing that made me feel full and happy until I started going inward and discovering what the heck I was carrying around, who I was as a person, what I want out of this life, and what relationships should really look like.
Beautiful. How did that come? What was the process from going, having that realization, right? And then finding something to get you to that spiritual aspect of yourself?
It found me, oddly enough. I was in a business group that's all grind. And I met another lady. Her name's also Jennifer, oddly enough. And she had her own spiritual group, which I was totally not aware of because you would never know it if you didn't get to know her a little better. And she invited me to a women's retreat. And I said, sure, why not? And it turns out that women's retreat changed my life.
Walk me through a little bit of that process at the women's retreat. What brought you to this new aspect of yourself?
I was going to sound like an episode of Real World, honestly. I showed up at a house with 8 other women and I knew one of them. So a house full of strangers and I didn't know what was in store. I just knew something in my life had to change and maybe this would be it. This would be the first step. Maybe it would be something because what I was doing, it just really wasn't working. So I showed up at this house and the first thing I felt was just love. And then we worked on breathwork, sound bowls, yoga, going out in nature. We were in Sedona. We went to a couple of vortexes there, did some meditation. And this was really my first introduction to meditation. We made prayer flags. We did all kinds of stuff on this journey. We went on walks and talked to each other and connected. And I realized there are other people like me out there, other women especially like me out there who tried to live in the grind and it just wasn't working, heavily in the masculine, ignoring the feminine and just pushing. And I met like some of my best friends.
I want to take a minute from the show to share how you can support changing the channel. This show is my passion project. And if you feel called to support, the best place to start is by subscribing and sharing the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Next would be to check out my website in the show notes, where you can become a VIP of the show and get exclusive content not available anywhere else. Finally, you can engage with the Q&A and polls to have direct say in the direction of the show. I am forever thankful for your support. And now, back to the show. So from there, you bring back these practices. How long does it take you from that trip to really changing how you're doing things in your day-to-day life?
Well, during that trip, I had a serious breakthrough. So we were in the midst of a meditation and I dug into myself and I found out what was holding me back. I found out what things I was carrying around and how I looked at myself and how other people saw me. So I brought that back with me. And like this breakthrough involved like snot bubble tears and the whole, the whole nine. It was very awakening. And coming back from that trip, then we did integration work because obviously you can't have these big breakthroughs and then just go home and eat chicken wings because it changes your life. And so we had a lot of calls, me and the other girls, me and some other people. I hired a spiritual coach. I hired a leadership coach. I became very ingrained in this group of women, and now there are some men in the group as well, and just started speaking my truth.
Beautiful. That's a wonderful story, a wonderful journey. So then you bring it back here and you've got your businesses set up. How was the transition from, the old Jennifer to the new Jennifer with employees, with people that are relying on you?
Well, I moved from a place of push again, where I would push them and I would not be. It's not like I was unkind, but I was very blunt verbally. To a person who gave people grace and leaned in to get to know them on a deeper level and understood that we're all people and what can I do to make you better?
Hmm.
Not just me, but what can I do to make you better? And when I started leaning into that, everything changed.
And how's that shifted your business as far as numbers, happiness, excitement? How has that changed?
So in January of this year, and in January of that year, sorry, January of the year, because it was a year and a half ago, we were negative 84% in revenue. And it's because of the COVID and a hurricane, but still we were in a bad spot. And we now are tracking about 40-ish% in positive revenue instead of negative 84. So 120% revenue turnaround, which is pretty much unheard of. I didn't know if we were going to go out of business because, it was a lot of stuff we had no control over. But I think a lot of it too was like changing my alignment and my energy. And now I live in a place where I don't attract the people that make my life a living hell in business and in life. And I attract the people that make it a joy to do work. And I hated my work. Back then I was just so sick of it. I was like, I'm sick of people. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of employees. I'm sick of blah, 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 blah. And now I'm in a place where I just have so much grace and I love the people, the clients I have. I love the people that work for me. And it's all, as it turns out, about loving yourself.
Hmm. That is a very good message. And that's what the podcast is really about. It's, changing the internal reality to change the external reality. So your internal reality was chaotic and frustrating before you had this process of awakening. And then afterwards, as you changed who you were being, your now external reality started to shift and it started to become something that, you could love yourself, you could love your job, you could love all the people that you were employing, working with. And again, you said it perfectly. You were not attracting people into your life that drove you crazy, that made you frustrated. And that's a big lesson that a lot of people are learning right now is that, again, all the frustration, the pain, the suffering that they are experiencing is typically because they are drawing it in. They're a vibrational match for that type of person, and they're drawing that to themselves. And your journey is just another emblematic. Basically, it's emblematic of exactly that law that exists in this reality. So, how how can people become more empowered? Like what are you teaching people in the Savage AF program that allows them to become better business people, become better managers, become better owners, become better, stewards of their business?
So the primary lesson that we're learning is that you have to lean into yourself. And you will reach a point in business, no matter how successful you are in dollar signs, where you are just not okay. And you'll look around and you'll realize you're just not okay. And so we're teaching them how to go inward, use some of these tools I've learned, and work on the stuff that prevents them from feeling their worth and loving themselves. And it's a hard journey, man. Oh, it's a hard one. But when you go do it, it's like it's the most beautiful thing ever.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So let's talk a little bit more macro. Let's talk about what your perspective is on business as more people start to shift their reality, as more people start to really come into their power. What does the business look like? What does the business world look like as that starts to happen?
So I think you're going to see more and more people that instead of wearing it as a badge of honor that they work 7 days a week and they never take a vacation and they don't have time for their kids and look at the stuff I have, I think you're going to find more and more people that brag about the value of the time they do have to spend with their kids, uh, the vacations they go on, the trips they take, the things they do for themselves, self love and all that stuff. I think you're going to see that is more of a bragging right than that I got a Lamborghini and look at my cool whatever stuff. And unfortunately, I've neglected the entirety of the rest of my life. And you're going to see a little more balance come about, and that it's something to be proud of instead of ashamed of. Because, I know everybody's seen that social media post that says, oh, I finally got to go to one of my 50 Little League games for my son. And I think that was going to become the exception and not the rule. And it's going to be like, oh, shoot, this is the first one I've had to miss in, 5 years because I had the flu or something, and not like a badge of honor that you've neglected everything.
Yeah. What about the future of business per se? Because you've done a lot of work with a lot of corporations, right? I
Mhm.
mean, what is your perspective on their ability or their wanting to push their employees as much as possible? Has that kind of shifted as you've seen this, or is that still kind of a pretty hard grinding aspect of the economy?
Well, I think that maybe won't change with corporations anytime soon. But what you're seeing is the quiet quitting, and I think that this is a result of the quiet quitting. I think people aren't going to put up with it anymore, and they found ways because of the internet and because of technology that they can make really wonderful livings, um, doing things they want to do, living their best life, and they don't need corporations like they used to. And I think that probably small and medium sized businesses will adopt. Um, the remote workability and all the things first, more so than corporations. Because you even saw during COVID when there was a lockdown and everybody worked from home and they're like, "Oh, people are happier and more productive and blah, 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 blah." And then it all ended and they're like, "We think we might adopt remote working." And then, "Nope, sorry, you gotta come back to the office because we find XYZ to be true, and so we need you here." And then how many people didn't go back?
Right. Yeah. A lot of people, they found a company that would allow them to work remote. They took their talent somewhere else, and it does make sense. I mean, from a technological perspective, we have the ability to do that. There is very little reason, unless you're still stuck in that old mentality where you have to be face to face to do business. But again, we're having a conversation, 1,000 miles apart from each other right now, and it's as if we're in the same room. So I don't see any difference between this conversation and any business conversation that you're going to have. Yeah, there might be some travel that's involved, or you have to be in one specific place for a very specific need for that company. But you know, 80-90% of business is probably able to be done via remote. Now, what is your perspective on having do you have remote or most of your employees remote now?
All of them but two.
All but
And
2.
even they are allowed to be remote if they want to, but they like to come in for the camaraderie, honestly. But they're given a choice. And so they oftentimes have to go do other stuff. They'll go travel to see their families, go to a wedding, do whatever they're doing. And it's not even like they're allowed. It's they can. They just tell me what they want to do and they go do it. It's not like I demand they sit in their seat next to me. They just choose to most of the time because we hang out and we're really close. And it's a tight knit, cool group, but they don't have to. And if they need to stay home or they need to do whatever, one of my employees is actually working from home today because she doesn't feel top notch. I think her allergies are acting up. And so it wasn't, I have to call in sick. It was like, I think I'm going to work from home today because I just don't feel 100% and I'm more comfortable here. Oh, she just hasn't let me know.
Right.
Um, so, and it's no harm, no foul. And, at Christmas time, my other employee has family in upstate New York. And so she just goes home for however long and hangs out with her family. And she just works from there. It's not a big deal.
Right. As long as you get your work done, as long as you're,
Excuse me.
getting what you need to be completed done, like, yeah, whether you're in an office or at your home or on Bali, it doesn't
Like,
really
yeah.
matter.
And I have some employees that are half a world away and they work and do their thing and it is what it is. And it's not a big deal. I have had employees that have worked with me for years and I've never met them face to face. I've seen them. I know what they look like. I know where they live, but I've never in person met them and they've worked for me for years.
That's fascinating. Have you had any, have you had to change kind of the way you do things, because of the remote aspect of work? And I mean, so when somebody's at home, there's distractions, there's stuff that could be going on. Do you feel like you have to help promote people get out of their house if they're working a lot? Something along those lines.
We have such a good culture at my company, and I've had remote employees long before COVID. I've been doing this a long, long time, but we have such a good culture. Like we have basically unlimited time off. The only restriction is how much you can take at any given time, because you can't be gone for a month. That'd be disruptive. But we have unlimited time off. We have a pretty open policy about doing the things you need to do in life, and so sometimes people do choose to work extra because they want to, but they never have to. So it's like a choice. Like they want to get ahead or they want a quiet time to work on a project or whatever, but they understand that work life balance is super important to me and that I don't require this of them. And so they just willingly, a lot of times, do it because they want to, because they want to get ahead, because they want to support the company, because they want to do something quietly and not be disturbed. So they just kind of do what they do, and it's okay. We do have working hours where you have to be available because otherwise we can't work as a team. But outside of that, lots of times people just go off and do whatever because they want to do it.
Yeah, that's I'm kind of interested in putting in an application for your company. That sounds like a wonderful place to be.
It's pretty great, and that's actually my personal core value. I have two of them. One is leave people better than you found them. And two is that if I own a company and as long as I own a company and have employees, I never want them to get the Sunday dread. So you're spending Sunday all stressed out and ruining your day because you hate your job so much that going there makes you wreck your day. So I want it to be a place that you can like as much as you can like work. It is still work. You still have to do stuff and we're still going to have crappy days. But in the scheme of things, it doesn't suck.
Right. Yeah. More good days than bad days, at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still work. I mean, it's not the beach, but if you have to work, this is a place you'd prefer to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. And has that correlated into better employee retention? Do you find it easier to find employees and retain and hire and retain them?
Yeah, definitely. So, I would say we have in the last 2 years, we've had probably two people quit.
Hmm.
Three people quit, something like that. It's been very low, and they quit because they were moving on to something better, not because they were upset with our company. And we encourage that. We encourage your growth, and we want you to go do cool things. And they'd been with me for a couple years, and found, just their career led them to something cooler. And we supported that. And one of them came back. So of the three people that left, one came back. Um, and so our retention's super high. Most of the time, we leave people when they fall out of fit with our culture. So if somebody gets hired and they hang out and they're just not fitting our culture and they're not contributing in a positive way, we'll more likely let them go than they will to quit.
Right. And yeah, I think that's important with that when you're building that culture. It's like you have to stay on top of it. You can't let one bad apple get in because it does have that negative impact on everybody else. I learned that from running my businesses. You get one bad apple and it really starts to affect everybody else in that whoever they're interacting.
even people that don't interact with, because it like trickles down. And so if this guy interacts with this guy and then this guy gets in a bad mood, everybody he interacts with gets impacted. And then the people they interact get impacted. And it's obviously lessened by degrees of separation, but it causes a mess if you don't watch yourself.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit more to the spirituality. Uh, from your perspective, from your journey in this spiritual journey, what where are we going as a collective? Where are we going as a society in this awakening process, in this moving from competition to cooperation?
I think that it's more acceptable now. Remember back in the day, if somebody talks about meditating, you'd be like, okay, woo woo, go hug a tree, wear your hemp, eat granola, blah, blah, whatever they said. And now somebody says, I'm really into meditation. And you're like, wow, what's your favorite meditation? Share that with me. Um, and I think that as a group, we're accepting, and it used to be a female thing, right? It used to be, oh, it's some chick doing whatever. And now there are men that are parts of high powered corporations that are leaning into uh, centering themselves. I was actually just at a mastermind this weekend, and we did what the heck's the name of that breathing method that starts with an H? Anyway.
Aw.
Yeah, there you go. So we did that. In the middle of a corporate like conference. We stopped and we did it both days in the middle of the day. Um, People were laying on the floor and crying. Like, and it was probably 97% men, 3% women, because it's advertising and that's just how it is. But they did that in the middle of the conference. Do you know that just a couple years ago, if you'd done that, people were like, yeah, cuckoo, we're not, nope. And they would have left the room. But I would say 85% of the people there participated, and they got up and they hugged each other and they were crying openly and living their truth, and got on the microphone and talked about their experience and what that meant, and people that they had missed because they had passed in their life, and epiphanies they had in the middle of the meditation, and so on and so forth. And I'm telling you, that would not have happened just a couple years ago. It would have been like, okay, cuckoo, whatever you say, woohoo, boohoo. And now it's embraced, it's introduced into these kind of things, and people are like, yeah, cool, I want to do that. Yeah, I want to dig into myself. It's okay if I cry in front of you, dude. And that's just not how it's always been. So this awakening is going to create vast impact as you said, in the collective. Like, we're going to become more one and less separate.
Yeah, that's wild to me to see that at and again, it's not like this wasn't a company sponsored thing. Like, this is a group of people who've never met each other before. This mastermind, this idea of them all coming together and having this experience, whatever you can call it, spiritual, you can call it self development, you can call it whatever you want, but having this, and like you said, the shift from acceptability from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago is crazy to see. I'm very happy and excited that it is happening.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch. It was truly. And then the speaker who did it, I actually gave him a hug. I was like, thank you for doing this here now. These people, everybody needs this. Like, thank you, you know?
Yeah. So what are any recommendations as far as people who are just getting into their self-development practice? You've gone through it. You had 18 months of being in it. Any tips or tricks for them, especially those who are in business, that are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week? Like, how can somebody just get started on this process?
Well, you'll see a lot of people that do it and they'll go from 0 to 1,000, and they'll be like, I'm going to do ayahuasca in Costa Rica for 5 days tomorrow. And they've never done any inner work at all. So some things I recommend are starting meditation. And I found when I started meditating, because I'm kind of hyper, I had a hard time sitting still with myself because I wasn't used to doing it. And so they actually have walking meditation that you can do, where you can walk and move until you get used to the practice and you're able to settle yourself and you're able to be quiet and you're able to be still. It isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. And so do what you can do. And it's hard if you're not used to it to sit for 30 minutes with yourself quietly and be still. Don't think that means you're a failure. That just means you haven't practiced. You're not going to jump on a bike and ride 100 miles tomorrow either if you've never ridden a bike either. You got to get some training wheels. So, walk into it, lean into it, and understand it's hard. And it's okay that it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. And then the more you do it, the easier it gets. And so there's steps. You can do walking meditation. You can then do seated meditation, and then you can do laying meditation, and so on and so forth until you get to that point where you can like fully immerse yourself in the experience. All of it is valued. Even if you can't quiet your mind at initially, if you can quiet your mind for 10 seconds and then 30 and then a couple minutes and so on and so forth, and you just keep trying and building upon that, eventually you get to a point where you've quieted your mind for 2 hours and didn't notice because you've practiced so much that it just becomes natural, like breathing. And you'll be like, holy cow, 2 hours passed and all the things I saw and all the work I did. And then don't be afraid to be vulnerable and find a group of people that can support you in this journey because it's hard. Um, it's not impossible. And I'm not saying it's hard, like, it's the worst thing ever. I'm just saying like it's difficult if you're not used to doing it. And so the more people you can surround yourself with that support that journey and that you can have conversation with, that you can be around, the easier it becomes because they can say, yeah, me too. Or, oh, of course, I got you. And things like that you need in a supportive group. And also that vibrational energy will be where you want to be, where you're headed, or you'll be going together. And it's a lot easier than if you surround yourself with people at low vibration. It's really hard to like come out of that. And you'll find as you do this journey of self-improvement or whatever you want to call it, these people are not going to be in alignment and they're going to fall behind. And don't think of it as a loss. It's just they're not with you right now and they have the opportunity to come along at their pace if they will. And, they may have been here for a little bit, but they either got a choice. They can either come back or you can find new higher vibrational people. And it's just part of the journey.
Right. Yeah. You definitely have to find that group of people that are going to lift you up, that are going to keep pulling you towards that higher aspect of yourself, that better version of yourself that that you're capable of. And that's been a huge part of my journey is removing people that didn't have that belief in me and didn't have the my highest and best interest in mind, and not necessarily removing them, but not actively spending time with them, not trying to spend time with them, and finding people who are excited for this journey that I'm on, that are excited for me becoming the best aspect, the best version, the best vibrational frequency that I can possibly emanate. And that has been a huge shift in my life from the last 20 years up until basically the last year and a half. So excellent. Well, Jennifer, I really appreciate you coming on today. If somebody wants to find you, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if somebody wants to join the Savage AF program, where can they find you?
I am on every social media I can think of. So it's under Jennifer Thompson, CEO, or Savage AF, one or the other. You can generally find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm there. I'm also under WebSpark Media. It's websparkmedia.com. You can look up my website. There's means to contact us there as well, or Jennifer at websparkmedia.net, which I know is contrary to the website. We own both domains. We started with one and so shifted to the other. So it's a little confusing, but here we are. So I'm easily accessible. I'm all over the place. And I'm also here to support people. I have two aspects of my business. I have advertising, and then I also have this just group of amazing individuals on their self-discovery journey. You can find us at The Collective on social media as well. And it's just an open group. It's free. You can join in and we just talk about this journey together and support each other.
Beautiful. Well, I'll make sure I link those in the show notes. And I really appreciate you coming on today. This was a wonderful conversation. And I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.